You're listening to Generation AI
from LivePerson.
Hello, Generation AI listeners. It is your host, Ruth Zive. I have a small request before we get started. If you've been listening to episodes and enjoying Generation AI, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. It really matters. And today is actually the last episode of season 2, and I'd really love to hear your thoughts about the podcast, the prior episodes, and definitely any recommendations that you have for future guests. Send those my way. Speaking of guests, for our season finale of season 2, we have a very special guest, LivePerson CEO John Sabino. Now, full transparency, John is actually my boss. So while it's somewhat out of character for me, as those of you who know me and have worked with me will attest, I'm going to have to mind myself somewhat and make sure that I don't step out of line too much. Now, for those of you who don't know John, he is a longtime leader in enterprise software, customer care, digital transformation. He's joined LivePerson as CEO. He came on board at the start of the year. And since then, he's really been working very closely with our customers, some of the world's biggest and most beloved companies. And he's been partnering with them on their customer conversation strategy. And as we all know, a huge part of that strategy is really figuring out how to get meaningful ROI from an investment in AI and automation. So very topical for this podcast. And today with John, I'm going to take a look back at season 2, which featured guests from BNY Mellon, Northwestern Mutual, Ancestry, IBM, CMSWire, many other companies. And we're really going to zero in on the most important trends that you need to be following across AI and CX. And given John's experience and current focus, he really is the perfect guest for this discussion. So let's get started. Welcome to Generation AI, John.
Ruth, first and foremost, thank you for having me on your podcast. This is actually a podcast I tuned into before deciding to come to LivePerson. So I am not only honored to be a guest on it, but I've also leveraged it during my journey in getting to understand what generative AI is doing to business and how to think about it as a leader. So I do look at this as almost an opportunity to kind of come full circle and have the opportunity to be on here and chat with you a little bit about what you're seeing, what I'm seeing, and share it with the audience. So thank you so much. Really excited to be here.
Of course. I love to hear that. I'm glad that you've personally and professionally drawn some value from the conversations that we're having here on the podcast. So before we get into the meat of this episode, maybe just share with our listeners a little bit more about yourself. And I'm specifically interested, I ask this of all of our guests, I want to hear about whether or not there was a point in your career where you first realized the impact that AI was going to have on business. What was that aha moment for you that really made you sit up and pay attention?
Yeah, so I think my background has a lot to do with why I am so intrigued about what AI brings to the table for personalizing conversations and engagement with customers and really driving a superior CX. My career has basically been inside of enterprise software for over 25 years. And that's just to date myself a little bit. But I remember the very early days when CRM systems and star schemas and relational databases were all coming together to give companies better insight into their customers. And more importantly, operational control to deliver services and capabilities at scale. And those technologies always held a lot of promise, but they never fully got there. And a lot of that had to do with not only the data challenges, the compute challenges, and then the orchestration that needed to follow, but it also had to do with scaling personalization and human engagement. So having that background and experience, generative AI specific, AI's been around for a while. We've had rule-based conversational AI. LivePerson, for one's been doing it for quite some time now. But this ability to build a large language model and operate at very, very large scales to bring together different data sets across all of your different systems and databases really is something that's relatively unique. And then to be able to automate on top of that and produce an experience or understand an intent is something that I think has started to change the game, and why why generative AI specifically, that can have almost a human interaction with you, is so important. So for me, I started to see this very early on with some CRM vendors that were looking to bring in recommendations to salespeople. And then I had a very forward leader in the customer success space that was looking to use AI to start to flag when customers weren't looking right, or they weren't adopting and consuming the right way, and using AI to activate their own CSMs. And so I was seeing it on both sides of customer interaction. And then eventually, when I started running large call centers, professional services, CS teams, these are roles known as chief customer officer, where you're engaging with delivering software. That's where AI began to shine. And I'll give you a very specific thing that you will hear from many CEOs. I want you to satisfy the needs of more customers, but cut your cost by 20%. That is, a counterintuitive request to start with, but AI, or the ability to automate, understand intent, and route a customer to the right information or the right subject matter expert, was what allowed me to actually get that 20% in savings, but also produce superior NPS and customer interaction. So it wasn't one particular thing, but it was a forcing function along my career. And of course, when you saw OpenAI and the capabilities that brought forward, that was where I think it really started the mania, or the hype, so to speak, across the board of what this could be. And I think I can end on this question saying, I think you're going to see a rapid adoption of this, probably quicker than things like cloud and social and mobile. I think this is going to move quicker. But as with all technology, it's not going to be this silver bullet that solves all of your customer experience problems or allow you to take all this cost out of your business. It's a tool. And when applied correctly, you can get some great results with it. So it's been an evolution for me, not one particular thing that said, oh, this is it. But it's a combination of experiences, exposure to certain technologies, and shifts in the technology industry, and ultimately what we've always been trying to do, which is provide a really smart, personalized, intent-based experience in a digital conversation for a customer.
Interesting. I agree with so much of that. It sounds like you would agree that customer care is sort of or has been historically the low-hanging fruit opportunity to leverage AI and automation. I think for a lot of customer care leaders, they would relate to this notion of an evolution that it has, wasn't, although I do think that, a couple of years ago when Gen AI hit the streets, it was, mania, as you put it. But do you think there was, just if we think about the time horizon and you reflect back on your experience as a chief customer officer, was there an inflection point where the scales sort of started to tip in favor of AI and automation? Just how many years ago would you say, you were starting to really feel that this was a technology that, to your point, was going to bring balance between cost savings and customer experience?
Yeah, it's about 24 months ago. And it was some of the work we were doing with Hugging Face. Very specifically, we had models that would, and I hate this word contain because it sounds like you're trying to wall off a customer, but get a customer to an answer. And those models and very structured conversational AI engagements produced about a 60% containment rate or hit rate in terms of serving what the customer needed. And you and I know 60% doesn't cut it at scale with customers. We serviced over 350,000 customers. So if you think about how many times you're missing with that in my past roles, that was not the experience you wanted to drive. But then when we started building our own LLMs, leveraging other ones, and we started seeing right out of the gate, 95% containment rate, that's when the light bulb went off. And that's when we moved from how do we do more calls? How do we build better digital journeys? We suddenly moved to saying, all right, how do we build an almost, I'm going to use the word autonomous, but how do you actually build an experience that's actually better than the human interaction because it's personalized to you and gets you to the information that you want very quickly? And then that ability to cut over to a human should you need it. And that really started to occur about 24 months ago. And about a year and a half ago, so if you take another 6 months after the initial experiments, that's when we started doing this stuff at scale for a very large software company that I used to work for. And that's when I saw our NPS actually improving. And it wasn't by adding more agents. It was about making these agents better. and then making sure that for the things that you always see, like reset my password, what am I entitled to with this license? That's pretty basic, straightforward straightforward type of things. And you'll see that on about 35 to 40% of all the calls that call into a call center. If you can knock that out with a great bot and a great generative AI experience that feels personal to you, that is an outstanding use case. And that's why I think you're seeing this so much in the customer care space, because those are the things that drag down the broader team, where you do need a human to solve some very complex issues sometimes with how your software is performing, or making a change to an order or something that you've done. And that's where you want your humans focused, not on, can you reset my password, or what's my account number. So that's where AI really started making a difference for me, and how I could see, if you really could figure out how to scale this in your business, you could do some amazing things. And again, that's what drew me to LivePerson. I think we do a great job of that. And there are other companies that do it as well. But AI is a tool. And when the tool is used correctly, you really can build some amazing things.
That's great perspective, John. I think that gives our listeners a good sense of where you've come from and your thoughts about the market opportunity relative to AI and the value add that it can provide into the customer experience. I want to get your reflections, though, or reactions rather, on some of the stuff that was shared by prior guests on this podcast. So if you'll indulge me, we recently had Andrea Dobrindt on the podcast. She works at IBM, and one of her core areas of focus is in upskilling 2,000 employees with AI competencies. And her philosophy around this initiative is that business problems are first and the technology is really second. So, because I know you and I work with you, I have a feeling that you agree with that. But I'd love to understand what that actually means from your perspective and what your take on that looks like.
I think I can actually illuminate what this means by saying what it is not, because I hear it all the time. You'll hear CEOs and chief customer officers all saying, we got to use AI. They're responding to the hype train, and that this is going to change the universe. Andrea's right. What this is a tool to solve some of the more complex problems at scale. And what's more important than the technology is understanding what you're trying to produce for a customer and the real business problem that you're trying to solve. And unlike what has come in the past from a technology perspective, with last generation AI rule-based, which had its purpose and it worked, but just didn't work to the degree that we're seeing in generative AI built on a strong LLM can today. It really is a tool to apply to very specific business cases. And so I'll get very specific with this. Looking at your data and your analytics around how you engage with a customer, whether it's in a sales motion, a customer care motion, or even in how a product performs with a customer and how they may ask questions about that. Your data should start to tell you where you have the same interaction coming in at scale. And your data should also tell you what interactions went well and which ones they don't. Once you have that, that is when AI as a tool can really be unlocked to help you extract the value in ROI. So to take this one step further, the leader that says we must use AI and just starts throwing it at things, you're actually going to probably be incurring cost. It can get very expensive to do that. But the leader who understands the business problem and says, where is my highest volume of problem? How do I want to deal with that volume? What experience do I want the customer to have? And can clearly articulate that and get access to the data that tells you what good, great, and bad looks like. That's where you apply the tool. So you should never fall into this trap of, I got to have AI, or that you're going to get a one size fits all. That's the other rumor that's out there. You'll hear a lot of companies say, I'm an Amazon shop, a Microsoft shop, a Salesforce shop, a LivePerson shop. The truth is, what I believe is going to happen in the future is that there are going to be tailor-made data sets, LLMs that are built to solve very specific problems. And what is incumbent upon leaders in the future is to understand those problems, the benefit to your business if you solve those problems, and picking the right AI capability to solve that problem. And so that might mean you're a Microsoft shop, but you have 2 to 3 other LLMs that are operating inside of your company. And your ability to orchestrate those, to use the best of breed capability, to use the one that's most cost effective to solve the problem, is really going to be what is prized, in my opinion, from leadership and employees when using these tools. And that's what the skill set's going to be all about. What is the best generative AI capability to solve my problem the most efficient way with the right cost structure and give the best customer experience? So summary, it absolutely is a tool. It needs to be designed back from the customer experience and the challenge or problem you're trying to solve. And don't get fooled. There isn't going to be one LLM or one generative AI bot that's going to rule them all. That might come later on down the line. But for right now, what I see over the next 3 to 5 years at a minimum, and probably even longer, you'll build your own. You'll have some large ones from other vendors, and then you'll have tailored ones that do specific things very well. And what you will bring to the table as a consumer, user, or expert of AI would be which is the appropriate one for the challenge that I'm trying to take on or opportunity I'm trying to create for my company.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good information there to unpack. So, a lot of what we hear in the market is that the enthusiasm and frenzy around generative AI is real and overwhelming. But, in the 2 years since it hit the world with Big Bang, a lot of companies have not been able to really realize a return on those investments. And I think it tracks back to some of what you're saying. And perhaps the most important takeaway for our listeners is that you have to start with a really solid understanding of the business problem that you're trying to solve. And the return on your AI investment is going to be that much greater if you point it directly at that problem versus, an AI strategy that isn't pointed at anything in particular. So really using the data, getting very clear on the business problem or outcome that you're trying to deliver. And then to your point, using the best model, the best bot, the best vendor that is in the best place to address that problem with clear expectations and KPIs so that you can realize that return. Is that fair?
That is not only fair, and when you summarize it like that, we should add another part to this, is that the hype around AI also has this negative hype around it where, it's going to take everybody's job, and I'm not going to they're not going to need me anymore. I think it's the exact opposite. I believe that AI predominantly over the next 3 to 5 years is going to be something that we at LivePerson, and very well, is this concept of human in the loop. It's enhancing what it takes care of the large scale, mundane, straight down the middle type of questions that an agent or salesperson or a customer facing person might find themselves in with the customer. But it really does move over to the other side, which is you can make that agent much more efficient and much more experienced and engage the customer in a way that may have taken months or years in the past in virtually the first day they hit the job, if you have the right assistants, co-pilots, and things like that. So I think it's also going to enhance the importance of having humans in the loop that can engage with a customer when it can't be just a linear bot engagement, or a human in the loop that, because we know people move around with their jobs, but is up to speed in a much quicker way, giving a better experience. So that's another thing that goes with this as well. It's not just that it's a tool that you're going to have many different types of AI capabilities, but it's also how it impacts your employee base and makes them better.
Well, let's hold that thought, because that's a great segue to the next the next guest that we had on the podcast, Dom Nicastro, who is editor-in-chief at Simpler Media Group, and they run some really great publications, including CMSWire. I really loved this conversation with Dom. He brought a very different perspective as a journalist. And I want to just share with you a quote very much related to what you were just saying. So this will allow us to go a little bit deeper. This is what Dom said, and then I want to get your reaction. Agents are the most important people in a company. They're actually bigger than the CEO, the CMO. Then he told me not to take offense. They literally are your frontline people. Contact center leaders tell me their number one priority is improving the agent experience. It's not software challenges, hiring, firing. It's getting in front of agents with better tools to make them happier about their jobs. So they are the humans in the loop that you're referencing. They are the ones who are worried that AI is going to take over their jobs. But from Dom's perspective, what matters most is arming them with the right tools so that they can do their jobs better. So just give me your reaction to Dom's quote, and let's just go a little bit deeper on these humans in the loop.
I got to tell you, you've had on some pretty smart people because I'm agreeing with them left and right. I'm actually probably drafting behind a lot of what they've said and believe because it's what I'm seeing in the marketplace. Dom is right on top of the drop zone, so to speak, or the target you want to hit with this. That's always been a challenge for a customer and a brand. And I hear you're trying to produce this experience, and yet you might have somebody that's overseas or in a contact center handling dozens of calls. And there's a fatigue that goes with that. There's a turnover that goes with that. And when that is the front line of your brand experience in some regards after the sale or even before the sale, it really does matter what that experience is like. So your ability to make sure that that person on the other end of the phone or the chat message or interacting with you asynchronously really can get to can really access that information that produces a delightful experience or gets you what you need, produces a brand loyalty that goes well beyond the salesperson, well beyond the advertising, well beyond, in some regards, the influencer that's out there using your product. The number one thing that builds loyalty with a customer is when something is not right or you have a question, being able to get that question or problem solved efficiently and quickly. That's a pretty rare thing out there these days. Just call an airline. Like, you might be on hold 15, 20 minutes when you're trying to book the next flight.
2 hours.
Yeah, I didn't want to go that far with some of the stuff that's been going on recently. But yes, that's not the experience an airline wants to produce. You want to be able to rebook that customer right away. And that's what keeps a customer loyal to you. So Dom is correct. So that's the experience side of it. It really is about making sure that agent delivers that experience and can do it at scale. But it also goes back to the human factor of everybody at their job wants to be experienced and have the tools and the knowledge to do their job well. If you think back to what's going on in most contact centers 24, 36 months ago, it is having a knowledge base that you're trying to sort through. You might have a piece of paper slapped on your wall next to your desk with all the different forwarding phone numbers and extensions you need. I've seen this, and my people have done this. But when you can actually use an AI solution that can listen, understand intent, help you by summarizing what's going on, and then give you next best action or tell you where to go with a question if you can't answer it, that really empowers that agent. I think that's what Dom is referring to. That's where you're going to see this really change the game in the short term and why it's having such an outsized impact in the contact center, because it's making the human better and it's making the customer experience better.
For sure.
So I agree with him completely.
Dom and I also talked about this paradox that, pre-AI, the agent is reading off of a script, a standardized script. They sound like a robot. They literally sound, there's nothing personalized about that experience other than like insert name in some cases after you've determined what the person's name is. But they sound like a robot. Post AI, those inquiries that come in that are repetitive over and over and over again that previously the agent had to respond to with this script can now be offloaded to a powerful Gen AI bot. And that frees the agent to have a more meaningful, personalized conversation when it matters most, which has got to be a better experience for the agent. That's got to be a more interesting, meaningful, rewarding work experience.
Yes.
So
let's go one step further with it. I'll share a personal experience. I recently was engaging with a bank. I spoke to the first agent and we went through, of course, my authentication and the questioning, and we're getting ready to do what I called up to do at this particular bank, and I got disconnected. So I called right back, as you always do. And guess what? I had to go through all the same stuff again. And the next day, no clue that I was having this previous conversation. With summarization and co-pilot tools, you now have the ability to have that history right there. It would have been great for that second agent to say, oh, I just saw you were talking to Mary or Nitin or Bob. Let me help you out with that. I know exactly what we have to do. So that is an example of exactly what you're talking about, a real world one that I just had happen to me very recently.
Yeah, a relatable example for sure. Okay, I want to turn to the next episode that we did with one of my friends in the contact center space, Nir Galpaz. He's at 8x8. And I talked with Nir about his view that bots and AI, they should not be looked at primarily as a cost-cutting opportunity. And I thought this was a unique perspective from a contact center leader. He felt that you should rather be focused on leveraging AI to improve the customer experience, CSAT, loyalty, all of those good things. We've touched on that a little bit today. Now, we know from our own research that there's actually and by we, I mean those of us at LivePerson, we did some research. We know that there's an AI gap and that consumers today are actually a little bit skeptical of AI. They've been burned in the past by automation. So what do you think? Do you think it should be, cost cutting first, customer experience first? How do you overcome that AI gap? Respond to Nir's point of view.
Yeah. So this might be it's not a disagreement, but a clarifying statement, I think, on what Nir is saying. I look at AI for efficiency. And efficiency doesn't necessarily mean you're cost cutting. Efficiency means you're getting to what you need or solving a problem more rapidly than you otherwise could. And then you're making a decision about where those savings get reinvested. So to use AI to take out agents or to get rid of salespeople or engineers, we've heard about some examples of where, AI can write code, I think is a big mistake. What I really think about this is that you have to use AI strategically, and we spoke about this before, understanding the business problem, challenge, or opportunity. And if you do it right, it is going to produce some form of efficiency. And then you have to look at your overall corporate strategy and ask what you're trying to do. Are you in part of your life cycle where profit matters? Then maybe you take the savings. Are you in hyper growth or trying to quote unquote steal share or grow your company? I'd argue that should go right back into the front end commercial business or into your contact centers, producing new services that keep customers loyal and buying more. Think about this. Let's say if you're not just doing customer service calls, but you can actually take that interaction and actually turn it into a commercial opportunity. So I just solved your problem, but I see from your background, your experience, your intent, you're interested in these 5 things. Would you like to talk about them? There's a sales opportunity and a growth opportunity. So if you cut that agent, you're not going to get that. So again, I think Nir is correct in that it's not a quote unquote cost saving opportunity. I'd like to use the word, if it's done right, it produces an efficiency and gives you an opportunity to think strategically about your business and where you want to reinvest that. And it should be aligned to what your corporate strategy is. And I'll go back to that request from my former CEO, which was grow the customer base, but cut your cost by 20%. In the past, I think that would produce an awful customer experience. But what AI allowed me to do was to keep a high level of customer service while not having to grow my expense line 20% or more to support those customers. So that's an example where it wasn't used as a cost-cutting activity, but through those efficiencies, I was able to maintain my cost structure and support a larger customer base and get a better CSAT and NPS and engagement score with the customer. So it's a win-win there. It's not just a cost-saving tool.
And if we bring it back to business outcomes, there could be cost-cutting opportunity, customer satisfaction opportunity, revenue generation opportunity. And what you're suggesting is that you really sort of have to zoom out and consider which business outcome is the biggest priority at the moment. And you can pull those levers accordingly. They're really not mutually exclusive.
That's right. That's levers. Exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I want to take one more step back for the big picture. You've been at B2B SaaS companies for a while. Before LivePerson, you were at VMware and Splunk, and you've been in roles where you've really had to listen closely to enterprise customers. I want to know from your perspective, what are the most momentous changes that you've seen over the course of your career, and how does AI kind of stack up against those?
Yeah, this is a great question. Again, I think I'm going to date myself here a little bit. I was there when cloud first came out and what that meant to an organization, and everyone said run to the cloud. And then I was there during social and mobile, where that's going to change everything. You're not going to need salespeople anymore. Everyone's going to sell something through their phone or Facebook. And then of course, I hate this term big data. We've always had data. But there's been companies that have popped up, around our ability to use data at scale that we've never seen before. And now, and that was going to change the world. And now the latest and greatest one is we don't need people. We have AI. I'm simplifying it, but that's almost where these trends always tip over. And to get very specific, the reason I think there is something big going on with AI is that with every one of those changes I experienced throughout my career, they've all been leading up to something where you're getting a little bit more efficient, you're getting a little bit more scale, you're getting a little bit smarter about what the customer wants. But the activation side of it was always, I had to have 20 people to take it to market or communicate it over the phone or the message or the platform and the web. AI seems to me to be almost like this flag on top of the customer experience Mount Everest. It is what is truly allowing you to deliver personalization at scale, potentially, when it's done right. And these past systems, CRM's never been able to achieve that. Your service, back end is not going to be able to achieve that in and of themselves. But AI, I think, is going to be the tool that unlocks all these different capabilities. And again, I'm a big believer in best of breed, have the best ERP, CRM, best code base, and tooling that you can have. But AI is actually going to do two things that I think are very big. It's going to make exception-based management much safer. So when you have to do things at scale, you have to look for the things that are out of place. I think AI is going to identify those for us in a lot better way than any static rule-based model ever allowed us to do in the past. And the second thing is that we all talk about intent and personalization, but to get there required a tremendous amount of work and alignment of your workflows, your systems, your reporting. And then it always required a human to look at that and sort through all of it. I think AI is going to allow us to hit that stuff a lot quicker and smarter and produce the outcome that either a human or an automated workflow can use to unlock that promise of personalization at scale. So I think my experience is showing me that these two things are actually real. And that's where I think AI is going to produce this outsized improvement with your customers, speaking to all of you out there in the audience. That's how you need to think about this. It's going to unlock, I think, a lot of the promises of all that stuff you have underneath. And the last thing I'll say, and Ruth, I think you and I and a few other technology leaders, we've been talking about this. Does AI actually replace the need for some of these expensive subsystems? I think we're going to see a day in the not too distant future where if you have your data set and you have your methodology of interacting with a customer, some of this tooling with the right automation and orchestration is going to allow you to, I think, take some of the software and infrastructure costs out of your business. We don't know what that looks like yet. I don't think even the best enterprise architects and CIOs are thinking that way yet, but you can start seeing the signs of this and how important it's going to be. So these are the things that I talk to CEOs and CIOs about, trying to stay as a leader 2 or 3 steps ahead of where the technology is today and figure out how we can use this technology to create outsized value beyond having the one LLM that rules them all and answers every question. I think you have to be much more precise, but that precision will allow you to unlock, I think, a lot of things that have always been on the horizon with these tools and systems, but now I'm able to do it at scale with either a human in the loop or an automated motion on the things that don't have as much value.
Love it. I love that perspective on the past and your vision for the future. And I'm excited to be chasing that future with you. We want to end this segment with our hype it or hate it rant. And what's going to happen is that we're going to put 60 seconds on the clock for each of us. You can rant or rave positively or negatively about a trend or issue in AI or business more generally, really anything. But you've got 60 seconds, John, to explain what you're all heated about or loving this week. So I'm going to call our producer on.
So I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock. Ruth, you'll go first, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds left, and then 10 seconds left, and then a buzzer will sound when your time is up, and then John, you will have a chance to respond to what Ruth has decided to hype or hate this week, and then it'll be your turn. Sounds good?
Sounds great.
So 60 seconds on the clock, and your time starts now.
Awesome. So today I'm going to hype something. I have a Google Nest camera. In fact, I have a couple. There's one in the front of my house and there's one at the side of my house. I think it's fantastic, certainly for the reasons you would expect, because I can respond to people who come to my door while I'm on the other side of the world or just chilling in my backyard. I can monitor any suspicious activity outside of my house. I can spy on my kids coming and going. They may not love that so much, but it's very easy to use from my phone. It's easy to manage in all respects. But my absolute favorite part of the Nest, unexpectedly, is that I've discovered that my house is a veritable wildlife sanctuary. And on a regular basis, I see raccoons and skunks and opossums and rats and bunnies and even a coyote once, that they're up and down my laneway and on my porch. And honestly, it's fascinating to watch them. And it's a little way that technology has made me feel closer to nature.
That was great.
You have a Google Nest, John?
Yes. So it's so funny to hear you talk about this. We are actually putting in a new home automation system here. And we actually just shut off what we had, which was a Google Nest. And we're getting ready to put in a whole bunch of other things. And since turning it off, I can't even tell you how annoying it has been to not be able to see who's at the door. And I never even thought about it from the perspective of seeing, just seeing what's walking past your house in the evening.
Go look in the wee hours of the morning and you'll be shocked to see what is actually, I suspect you'll be shocked to see what is actually, I live in the city and I see all of these animals and I never would have thought. So
that's really cool. And I think it's a great technology as well. And when you think about what you can do with home automation and integrating your security, your music, the shows and things that you love, when you put all that together, it makes your home not only a safer environment, I think. I know they talk about a lot of safety challenges and stuff, but I actually think overall, you can make your home safer and work more for you in terms of how you consume media and digital technology. It's awesome. Yeah. I give you a thumbs up on that rant. That's a good one.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, you'll have a chance yourself now. So I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock, and same deal. I'll let you know when there are 30 seconds left and then 10 seconds, and then Ruth will have a chance to respond. So are you ready?
I'm ready to go, John.
All right. Your time starts now.
Okay. I'd like to rant a little bit on how much I hate celebrity CEOs. And I kind of feel that I have the ability to rant because I've just become a CEO and understanding the importance of this role inside of a company and what you need to be for your employees and for your customers. I find that a CEO should be a leader who's very focused on the working conditions, the things that their employees care about, and in turn, what they deliver for their customers, and putting that as a priority above all else.
30 seconds.
Additionally, a CEO should be somebody who is helping remove confusion and clutter and preventing your best people from doing their best work. You're more of a traffic cop at times and setting priorities. It's not about your ego, or getting your own face on CNBC, which I see being such a big part of what many CEOs do. But a CEO should be somebody that steps into a company and really does help crystallize a vision to let the people of that company deliver for their customer. That's what I strive to be as a CEO. Thank you.
That's a hard one for me to react to because the audience is going to see it as like ass kissing. But John, you are truly, you really do embody that vision of CEO that you just described. You're a pleasure to work with and work for. And the last 6 or so months of having you on board has just been a true, career highlight for me. So, I'm glad that you ranted about it. I've worked for celebrity style CEOs as well, and agree with everything you said. So thank you for being this type of CEO and helping us have clarity and focus on the things that matter most.
Thanks, Ruth. Every day I come to work trying to make it better for all of you and our customers. And lastly, and again, I'm going to do it right back so audience can interpret it any way that they want. Love having you as the CMO of our company, helping me crystallize some of these visions. And it's actually, to be on this podcast is a real honor. It's something I was looking at before I ever came to the company, and to finally be here with you and chatting, it really is a privilege. And thank you. And to your audience, again, thank you for listening to my thoughts on some of these topics.
Of course, it's been great picking your brain and getting your perspective. And our listeners can find both of us at liveperson.com or on LinkedIn. I want to remind our listeners to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. This is the final episode of season 2, but we will absolutely be back with more interesting guests from the AI space. So make sure you tune in and share with your friends and family. And that's a wrap.
See you soon. Take care. Thank you, Ruth.
You've been listening to Generation AI,
Automating Better Business,
a show from LivePerson.
Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share the episodes you love. Until next time.